Hey guys, and welcome to Face of Fiction. My name is Melissa, and it has been a very, very long time. I had to take some time away to do a lot of self-care. I felt like I was frazzled beyond belief, and I just needed to stop and redirect. So basically, I needed to tell myself to focus on what it is that I wanted to do and stop spreading myself so thin on so many different things. So there are going to be some changes to the channel, and I probably will not post as much as I normally post. I'm going to post as I read. I'm not going to try to like cram so much stuff in and stress myself out, because I was getting to the point where I was stressing myself out so much that when I actually had time off, I was getting sick, because it's like my body was feeding off that stress. So I need to stop doing that. So today we're actually going to be doing a shorter video, and hopefully it's going to be shorter, but I'm long-winded, in regards to a throwback book. And I am a child of the 90s. And R.L. Stine played a huge part in my childhood. So I go thrifting a lot. And Alabama has a smaller selection of books. I think I've said that before. But actually came from thrift books, which if you have never ordered from thrift books, I definitely recommend. Most books are normally like $4 on there. But if you can't find it at a Goodwill close to you, it's a lot better than having to pay full price and then shipping on top of that. A lot of times, I think it's $15 or above, you get free shipping. And there was actually a coupon going on that was like 15% off $15, so I really took advantage of that. But I picked up this book, which is The Babysitter. This is books 1 and 2. So I'm going to briefly go through each one. I don't remember reading this particular book. There were times where I was like, did I read this? But I don't think that I did. Because it didn't really stick out that well. There's a few that I know that I've read and I've got in my collection. So that's going to be interesting. But basically, I'm going to read the back. Jenny just wanted to make a little extra cash, and babysitting seemed like the perfect solution. How hard could it be? Play with the kids, sing them a lullaby, put them to sleep? But Jenny had it all wrong. The house is dark and creaky, the crank calls are terrifying, and there's a strange man lurking just outside. Someone knows Jenny is babysitting. He knows that the baby is asleep, that Jenny is all alone, and now he's coming for her. So when was this published? The Babysitter was 1989, and The Babysitter 2 was 1991. So, the first book is way better than the second book, hands down. The first book begins with Jenny, and she's either a junior or going into her junior year, because the second book, she states that she's a junior. So, she's probably like 16, 17. Probably more 16 than anything. And so she's babysitting to help get extra money for Christmas. So we're automatically rooting for her, because she's obviously needing money for Christmas. It's just her and her mom. So she gets a babysitting gig with the Hagans, who are very interesting. Mr. Hagan is constantly concerned about his child and thinks the worst is happening, which he has good concern, because there is a babysitter serial killer loose in the area, and there's other reasons why he has concerns, which come out towards the end. And I don't really want to go into all that, because I feel like that's a development in the story. But the parents are very concerned about their child, and they live in like this like very old decrepit kind of house that could really be a haunted house. The shutter's falling off. It's not the best. So Jenny starts babysitting this kid, and he's a really sweet kid. And she actually starts that because she finds the child in the mall, and he's like trying to climb into a fountain, and she can't find the parents anywhere, and she basically stops the kid, and then the parents show up, and then anyway, which is kind of interesting because of how overprotective they are. I'm just kind of like, how did your child get away from you? Were child leashes not a thing back then? So Jenny starts getting crank calls at her babysitting gig, and she starts getting very freaked out. They keep happening. She has a best friend, and then there's this guy that she's kind of talking to, and she's kind of dating, but she's not really dating, and his name's Chuck. And I will tell you, like, it kind of creeped me out. I read it in like a night, and I was like in the bed like reading it, because I was just like, I like anything where you don't know, and it's kind of like a chase or a pursuing kind of thing. That's the thing that scares me the most. Like when what is Jason is like going through the woods and chasing the campers. Like, that freaks me out more than anything. So basically she's trying to figure out who it is, and there's this creepy neighbor that shows up, and he's like, I see someone in the back prowling, you know, is everything okay? And like everything is just awful. Like, she doesn't feel safe at all, which part of me is like, why are you still babysitting? Why is this still a thing? Why are you still doing this? If this creeps you out so much, just, you know, make homemade gifts at this point. Do something. So she goes upstairs. There's one night where she goes upstairs. No, Mr. Hagen like busts through. Something happens where he comes home early. Like, he was really freaked out about his son, and Jenny goes to get her coat, and it's in their closet. And she ends up knocking down a box, and in the box there's clippings of like the babysitter killer. And she's like, oh, why would someone have this? Why would someone have this and circle all this stuff? And Mr. Hagen offers to drive her home, and she's like, no, I'd really rather walk. And Mr. Hagen's like, no, I'm going to drive you home. So needless to say, Mr. Hagen ends up being the babysitter serial killer. And the reason for that is basically they had a child, and you find this out during the course of the story, that died because of a babysitter's negligence. So he now feels like he needs to have some retribution against babysitters that are lax and don't do their job. It's kind of like if you watch Riverdale, the hooded killer or something. It's kind of like that. So it was kind of lackluster, but at the same time it had a good build up, so it was decent. The second book, however, picks up where the last one left off, and Jenny has a new family that she's going to start babysitting for. She's really kind of scared about it. She's going to a therapist. What else is going on? She meets a new guy named Cal, who kind of is described like Billy Idol, which is kind of weird to me because I'm like, it's the 90s, not the 80s. But now that I'm looking at the date, it's early 90s, so it kind of makes sense. She has Chuck from the first story, who is still trying to get to her, and I feel like Chuck's gonna play a part in like one of the next stories. I really do. Like, why is he still lingering? What is the purpose of that? So she starts a new job, and this is with a kid that's kind of like a computer genius, and he's kind of rude. Like, he's just, the kid has no like redeemable qualities. He keeps tarantulas, he rebuilds computers, he rebuilds a phone that he has in his room. So she starts this new babysitting job, and the calls start again, and she's just like, Mr. Hagen, how is this possible? You know, this can't happen. So it goes through, and you have all these suspects. Obviously Chuck, the kid Eli, I think his name is, the new guy, kind of like, why is he here? He's kind of like, I don't know, like that whole Cal aspect, which is the new guy, seemed so forced. Like, why is he there? So I was very skeptical of him. I was like, is he a red herring? Like, what's going on with him? Like, he even takes her to a party where like everyone's making out. I'm like, okay, this dude, not maybe a good choice for you. So she deals with like dead tarantulas in her purse, which makes you think it's the kid because he's built a phone and then he keeps tarantulas. It's just all this nonsense. And then there's a point where she's like, well, she thinks it's her therapist because she's told the therapist every detail. And like, how does this person know everything? You know, the person that actually did it is dead. The only other person would be Chuck. Which again, Chuck. So she tries to do a setup, with the therapist, and she basically says that she wants to go back to the quarry where everything went down. So she sets it up, and sure enough, someone does show up, but it is not the therapist. And I noticed a pattern with the first two books that I'm curious to see if it happens in the next two books. But the killer, or the person that's harassing her, shows up at the very beginning of the books in the first two books. So I'm curious to know, I'm going to pay very close attention to the third and fourth book to see if the killer or the harasser shows up in the first couple chapters. Because if it is a pattern, like, that's going to annoy me. Like, it's kind of interesting to look back at the books and be like, why did I like these books? Like, what about them? But I guess for my age at that time, like, that was scary. Like, it was kind of scary for me now. And I'm like twice that age. So it's kind of interesting to go back and read them, which, like I said, I have books 3 and 4, and I do plan on reading them. And the fun stuff about always getting used books is sometimes you find stuff in them. And this time I found this little bookmark. So shout out to Emmett. That was an awesome little bookmark to have. I'm going to keep it in the book when I donate it, so hopefully someone else can enjoy it. But did I like them? Yes, I like them. I read them in one sitting. I read them in one day. They're easy reads. If you're ever wanting to go down to nostalgia lane, definitely pick up a book that maybe you've read or a author that you read a long time ago. It was just, I don't know, it brought back a lot of memories of like going to Books A Million and begging my father for money for a book. So yeah, that is the Babysitter series by R.L. Stine. If you've read it, tell me about it. Did you like it? What is your favorite R.L. Stine books? I've got several in my little box that I plan on like digging out, like some of the super chillers from Fear Street and some of the Fear Street sagas. I would really like to know, did you like them? Did you read them? Which ones were your favorite? Which ones did you hate? Anything like that. I've got some other series, Christopher Pike, Richie Tankersley, who I never read, but apparently had several books during that era, that were kind of along the same vein. So very interested in reading those. If you have any other books that you might think that I might want to check out, do let me know, because I love going down memory lane and like remembering like why I like these books. What mindset was I in? Did I like them? Did I hate them? Did I feel accomplished? I just have so many books to read. Got like a big stack over here. If you can see, it's a lot. And I kind of gave up on my 50 or the book challenge. Like, I'm still doing it, but at the same time I'm kind of like, you know what, let me just read what I want to read and get some of these books out, because I've gotten to this like mood where I want to like declutter a lot, and I have a lot of books, and a lot of these books I picked up from secondhand stores, Goodwills, things like that. I'm against buying new copies of books unless you really enjoy the author, because it's so expensive. However, I totally support, if you love an author, please buy their books. Plus I have a Kindle. The Kindle saves a lot of space, so if I ever buy a new book, I usually buy it on my Kindle, unless, like I said, it's my favorite and I want to stick it on my favorite shelf, which is over there. But that isn't even the half of the books that I've got to read. I've got so many books that I've got a whole bookshelf, which I'll try to insert like a picture of books that I want to read at some point in time. I see these books and I'm like, oh, I want to read that. I wish I was one of those people that just had like a small stack of books that I read at a time, but I'm not. I'm a hoarder. And I just watched an episode today of Hoarders that completely like frightened me, because I'm like, is this gonna be me when I get older? My husband's gonna probably kill me if I try to do this. Yeah. If this book is terrible, if this video is terrible, I'm getting back in the groove of things, and I'm going to try my hardest to like keep it steady. So I love you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good week.